Okay, hiya. This is the much-awaited PXE Boot demonstration post. I've been taking ages with these PXE-related posts, but I've just had a lot to do. So, first I'm going to demonstrate it working between two virtual machines, which is a bit like, great, but it will show you that it actually works and gives me an opportunity to note a couple of things. And then I'll show you in the next video, which will be coming at the same time and will be in the same post. Then I'll show you it working on actual hardware, which is going to be a bit harder to do, but that's fine. So for this one I'm just going to start the boot server. I'll move it over here so you can see it. So this is Ubuntu 16.4 server. Oh, I've just messed up the window size. There we go. I thought that would be a good choice, which it turned it is. So right now it just mounted all of the... I'll show you in a second once it's finished. Okay, so I have to log in. So the way I've set this up is that so DHCP server configuration. There we go. Is just that. So this is for a BIOS only setup. So it's just PXE Linux, and it has its own network. And what else do I need to show you? So the PXE Linux configuration. I did touch on this in the blog post, but I'll show you anyway. It might be helpful. So yeah, we've got some over here. Oh, you can't see the pointer. Okay, so we've got some Efi Boot Files, which was my last attempt at making that work. And we've got a load of directories here for different versions. So we've got Fedora 26, 27, 28, Ubuntu 14.4 through 18.4. But for the configuration, that's in here. That's here. So default, use the menu, because that's nice. And for each thing we have a label, a kernel, and an initRD, and some boot options, which just point it at the server, point the client at the server. Fedora is a bit more complicated because we have to turn Pxe Linux off, but apart from that, it's the same. So, kind of pretty simple really. There is another piece of configuration we need. Yeah, okay. So all of these are all virtual machine images, and they're all mounted under /NFS root. So what I've got is a bunch of virtual machines with all of these Fedora and Ubuntu releases. And if I do this, that's where I put them. You can see one Fedora and all of the Ubuntu ones. I've only got one folder for Fedora because it uses LVM by default, which means it's a bit complicated to explain in the video, but essentially it means I can only mount one at once. So if I want to boot a different Fedora one, I'll just shut the virtual machine down, connect a different hard drive and reboot, which is fine because it's fast. So under each of these, those main partitions for each of those operating systems are mounted, and to allow clients to use it, I believe the configuration file is this one. Yeah, so for each one, you say any client on this network can access read-write, not as root. Oh yeah, so don't compress. I think that basically means asynchronous and insecure, which for some reason I have to do for PXE Boot to work. I was directed to do that by a wiki post I was reading, which I still haven't gotten around to updating, but I will do that. Okay, so that's the configuration. So I'm just going to clear that and put it there. I'm also going to bring up the system monitor so I can see network activity. I don't know if all of this will fit on the screen. Hopefully it will. Okay, so we should be able to see how fast it is. So these machines are hosted on an SSD, and this is a virtual 1 gigabit Ethernet, so we should get speeds around 100 megabytes per second when we're booting. Hopefully. So if I get client, here we go. I'll just put it on top of the server. So it'll get the address from the server. I'll adjust the window size so you can see. Here we go. So this is our boot menu. And at the moment I'll just check. At the moment I've got Fedora 26 connected. And all of the Ubuntu ones. Oh, and this one is just a note to me because sometimes I forget to connect the right hard drive. So let's go with 14.4. And you should... Oh, we can't see it. Okay, I'll just close that then. But anyway, it'll start to boot. And in a minute... Yeah. So it says the link is not ready. And then this is the server configuration coming through. Which all looks correct to me. So normally there's a pause at this point. Yeah. So you can see the network activity indicator is coming on here, and that it's reading from a virtual hard drive. So yeah, we're booting up now. This message here is because of a limitation in Ubuntu 14.4, so I can just skip that. I can just do that manually, that's fine. And now it'll start to boot. Well, finish booting, more or less. It's pretty quick, really. Here we go. So, one thing to note is that I didn't have to do this for any of the other virtual machines, but for 14.4 I had to disable the network card configuration here. Oops. You might have to do this, you might not. Come on. There we go. Yeah, so I had to set the Ethernet card to manual, or it would get halfway through booting up and then it would reset the network card and drop the connection to the server, which is not very helpful. So yeah, I had to do that. And I think I might have mentioned that in a blog post, but maybe not. The other thing I had to do was in FS tab. All of these are still here for the drives, but because this client is not connected directly to that hard drive, you'd think all of these would fail, which they do. But there's a bit of a hack where you can add, here we are, no fail to the boot options, and then if the drive isn't present, it will continue. Except in the case of, for some reason, this one where it just says it couldn't mount it, but I can skip it, which is fine. So yeah, so once this is up and going, everything will just run as normal. So if I open... I completely forgot this even existed, maybe I got rid of it in menu releases. So all of this stuff is just normal. So system details, Ubuntu 14.4, blah blah blah. Small hard... Oh, did I really give it that much space? That doesn't sound right. Let me check that. Oh, it's because I've also got the Fedora. No, that's not why. This doesn't make very much sense. That's a 16 gigabyte hard drive, but it's reporting it as 28.3. Well, never mind. Doesn't really matter. Yeah, so you can do updates, you can change all this stuff as normal, and it's persistent, which is what I wanted, because most of the tutorials I was looking at were for installers or for non-persistent ones, but because I've done it this way, I can also, well, I'll show you if you want, I can shut this down. So basically it runs as normal, but it's a tiny bit slower than it might otherwise be. Okay, so because of the way I've set it up, I can now get Ubuntu 14.4. Oops, what did I do? Right, because it's connected to this. So I'll shut this one down quickly. You can't have the hard drive connected to two at the same time, that's what the problem is. So this will go full screen. And then, because of the way I set this up, I can boot the same operating system, but from a local disk in VirtualBox now, and it will work just fine. It'll be a bit quicker, and you get a nice boot splash, but essentially it's fine. It will work as normal. So if I go to System Settings, I wonder whether it will still give me the wrong information here. No, it's right this time. That's really weird. It must be something to do with having it running over the network. Whatever. Okay. So, should I show you a Fedora one? I'll show you a Fedora one as well. Seeing as that's kind of different. They don't really work the same way. So this will boot up. I'll have to wait for that to finish, but it's only going to take a second. Okay, right, now I've got Fedora 26 connected, so I'll get the client going. Here we go. Window size is right this time. So Fedora 26 will start to load. I'll do all the usual kind of stuff. These were always a bit more glitchy, getting us to work on Fedora. Yeah, so here you go. Anyway, link becomes ready for the network card. And there's normally a hang at this point for like maybe 30 seconds, and then it will keep going, was what I found. But it's still doing stuff if you look at the network indicator there. But yeah, when I was trying to get this to work on my old laptop, this was a complete nightmare. And I had to do some hacky stuff with the network card MTU, which I've now had to undo. But I'm kind of wondering whether this will work now. I think it should. It worked before. I did test it recently, so hopefully it will finish booting up in a second. It was always slow though. Here we go. Yeah, I don't know why it does that. Now it says welcome to Fedora, so now it's booting. At some point there'll be a little hang because the local disks aren't actually there. Some stuff fails, but none of it really matters. Okay, maybe it won't hang because of the disks, and it should have done. While the others do, maybe this is almost an end-of-life version of Fedora. Yeah, so login screen, login. That's when I had to turn Pxe Linux off, because otherwise it wouldn't let me log in, because it didn't recognise the file paths, which is fair enough. So now we'll boot up as usual. Here we go. And what's also quite cool, I didn't show you this, is I don't know if it's working in this virtual machine at the moment, but if I full screen... No, okay. Well, if I had it set up properly, which I don't, if I full screened, the VirtualBox Guest Edition still work, which is quite cool. I wonder if I have got installed. No, I don't. That would explain it. Yeah, so then as before, this all works just fine. It's just a little bit slower than it is directly, but not really. So this allows me to test, this allows me to test all of my programs on the laptop as well, which I'll be showing you in a second. It working on that, which is more or less the same, but a little bit more fiddly. Okay, well, let's close this. I don't really need to... Oh, my mouse is frozen. Okay, let's wait for it then. Could turn mouse integration off, and nope, still not moving. Just have to wait for it to finish. And anyway, there's no point making you wait for this, so I'm just going to end the video here and then we'll switch over to showing you on real hardware. So see you in a second, and if you're watching this on YouTube, the next post will be uploaded a couple of minutes after this one.